Red Dead Redemption 2 has a long list of awful antagonists that the Van der Linde gang confronts throughout the story. Everyone is awful for one reason or another, so I figured I'd take a look at them and rank them from least evil to most evil. This list is my personal preference and only takes into consideration the events of the Red Dead Redemption 2 story and epilogue. So without further ado, let's find out just how awful these people can get. Starting off this list with the least evil antagonist, we got the Greys. And in terms of bad things they've done, their list is minimal. They killed a wanted criminal without a fair trial, which I argue is fucked up, even if they are wanted, and they had a few outlaws steal horses from their rivals. I'm sure they've done more, but it is never seen by the gang, nor is it ever mentioned in the game, which is why I see them as the least evil antagonist in Red Dead 2. They are still pieces of shit though. Taking a bit of a bigger step up, we got the Pinkertons. Now I know what you're thinking. Lavish, why the fuck are they so low? Well, honestly, comparatively to a lot of the other people on this list, they aren't as bad. I made a video about this where honestly I put them on a bit too high of a moral standpoint because they aren't that great, but more or less it was to show they aren't as bad as people put them out to be. Ross is a piece of work, but this list is considering Red Dead 2 and not really one. And honestly, all they do in Red Dead 2 is hunt down the Van der Linde gang. That's all we ever see them do. Of course, their two big flaws with this is they work with Cornwall, who is, well, we'll get to him in time, and they kill criminals without trial, which is awful. But what makes them worse of the Grey is they do this more consistently than the Greys. We only see the Greys do this once, and we know the Pinkertons do this well more than once. But other than that, that's all they really do throughout the game. From here we go to the Braithwaites. And what makes them worse than the Pinkertons and Greys is, well, a good majority of how they make money is through indirect criminal activities. They work with the Lemoyne Raiders, more on them later, to sell moonshine and roads, and of course, paying the gang to burn down the Greys' tobacco's field, which honestly I find much, much worse than stealing a few animals, since that was the Greys' main source of income, and they just burned it all down. And on top of that, they aren't afraid to steal a child and give them to an Italian mob boss to prove a point. That's fucked up. That is really messed up, and it even breaks the Geneva Convention since they're involving a child in warfare. Honestly, just their more active involvement in criminal activities just makes them so much worse than the Pinkertons and Greys, and is why I put them here. Moving on to the actual criminals, we got the Laramine gang. These people are briefly shown at the beginning of the epilogue harassing Mr. Geddes, the owner of Pronghorn Ranch, to try and get him to sell the ranch. This gang is hired by landowners to convince people to sell their land, and they do this by any means possible. This can include stealing animals, vandalizing / destroying farm buildings, harassing workers, and if it comes to it, straight up killing the workers and owner. This is where we start to see a larger amount of criminal activities, but these men are hired, and of course, it only gets worse the further we go. From here, we moved on to another criminal gang called the Foreman Brothers. We only really see their leader, Anthony Foreman, throughout the game due to him wanting revenge on Tilly for killing his cousin. Through Tilly, we learn about how abusive they were towards her and what they actually did. But that's all we really know about them is through Tilly and through these missions. They aren't really seen throughout the game other than that one mission they harassed Tilly and Valentine, and when they actually kidnap her in Saint-Denis. But thanks to what she tells us and from Red Dead Online, we know that they were a ruthless group of criminals doing similar things that the Van der Linde gang was doing, like robbing and killing. Speaking of robbing and killing, a bit further up we got the Lemoyne Raiders. This gang consists of ex-Confederate soldiers and young men with strong traditionalist views. They are very anti-government and deeply racist individuals who go around Lemoyne acting as outlaws. They sell and produce illicit goods, rob, and murder like any outlaw gang at that time. We don't see them too much in the Red Dead story other than a few instances like when they attack Arthur and Hosea for giving away moonshine they took from busting one of their operations. But as we travel along Lemoyne, we can commonly see them killing and robbing people just as any normal person would do, right? They just cause havoc and ensure fear all across the state of Lemoyne, all because of their political views, but outside of that, there's not much more we know about them. From here we move on to the Italian mob boss of Angelo Bronte. This man, when he was alive, ran a prominent crime empire in Saint-Denis. He, on the outside, acts as a loved and respected businessman, but in reality, he is a ruthless ruler who ensures fear on everyone in his city. He is suspected to be in multiple crimes, including manipulation of city officials, racketeering, and smuggling. Though that may not seem as bad as, say, the Foreman brothers or Lemoyne Raiders, what pushes him up for me is the fact that he ensures fear and acts as a monarch, backstabbing or killing anyone he didn't like. To top it all off, he did it because he loves being in power. He loves feeling in charge. And to me, that is pure evil, worse than any of the gangs that I mentioned. Now we're getting into the real juicy characters. We're looking at Micah Bell. Now you might be shocked that he finds himself almost directly in the middle, but hey, if he's worse than a mob boss, then that's saying something. I shouldn't have to explain how awful he is. He's selfish, reckless, and wild, like a ticking time bomb. He's killed, robbed, stole, harassed, vandalized, and done so much more without a single bit of remorse. And of course, we all know of his betrayal to the gang. Honestly though, that's not what puts Micah here. Micah has been known to kill children and families without a second thought. Although never explicitly seen in the game, it is claimed that he's killed a whole family, which is a line none of the other people have seemed to cross. Honestly, he's done so many bad things, you'd think he is the worst, but trust me, it gets so much more worse from here. And what better way to look at traitors in the gang than to look at the man himself, Dutch van der Linde. Now you might think I'm crazy for even seeing him as an antagonist, but replay chapter 5 and you will see. He wanted John dead, he harassed and yelled at all who opposed him, and of course took advice from Micah, which is always a good idea. But how is he worse than Micah? Well, in his fight for the idea of freedom, he has harmed more innocent people, and yet despite knowing that, he keeps going. Even after his gang falls to shreds, he keeps going. Even when he kills more innocent people than I can count, I cannot express this enough, he keeps going. Dutch won't stop. Even if his idea of the perfect world is met, he won't stop killing people he doesn't like. He doesn't feel any remorse for anything and finds a way to condone all of his horrible actions, and every man who puts their trust in him ends up dead. He was a horrible person, even worse than Micah. But of course, there's still more awful figures to be looked at. Oh boy, Coleman the O'Driscoll sounds like a shitty 80s band. To put it simply, imagine Dutch in the van der Linde gang, but you're not even fighting for an idea. You're just there to rob and cause havoc, because fuck it, you can. Well, that's the O'Driscolls. Coleman takes people who can ride, shoot, and don't give a fuck about harming people, including women and children, and puts them in the gang. They commit crimes without any reason other than because they can. Those crimes can be anything. Robbing, murder, rape, vandalism, harassment, literally any crime you can think of. O'Driscolls probably did it. Minus cannibalism, but more on that later. They are by far an awful menace, and Coleman deserved exactly what he got. There's a special place in hell waiting for him and his followers, but somehow the O'Driscolls are at the bottom of the barrel. Cornwall. Fucking Cornwall. What a sack of crap. This man is driven by greed and wealth and is exactly who Dutch says they are fighting. Rightfully so. To be honest, this man is a huge pile of shit. Like, oh my god, he's an asshole who doesn't give two fucks about any of his workers. He wants to drive a whole tribe of Native Americans off their land for the prospect of oil, even though the federal government doesn't want them to get involved with that. Those two things are all a breach of human rights. He's 100% killed thousands of workers due to unsafe working conditions. He's given them, and on top of that, is okay with the massacre of a whole tribe of people for money. If that's not evil, I have no fucking idea what is. Colonel Favors, for those of you who don't remember him, he was the leader of the American army trying to drive the Native Americans off their land. He was the man Cornwall was working with to get that land, so since he was the actual enactor who agreed with Cornwall, I have to think he's worse, only slightly though. Favors is an old racist Confederate soldier who sees these people as savages, withholding medicine and other supplies from them, breaking treaties made with them, and even killing them to get them off the land. He even wants to have his own captain hanged for trying to help these poor souls. His blatant racism and willing to kill a whole group of people over this piece of land is why I put him slightly above Cornwall, but honestly, these two can be swapped. From killing a whole group of people to enslaving a whole group of people and working them to death, we are giving the number 2 spot to Alberto Fusar. Unlike Bronte, who ruled Saint-Denis through bribery and other methods, Fusar straight up is a dictator of the island of Guarma, and he's far from a fair ruler too, due to his far from humane methods to convince people to follow his teaching. He works his plantation workers to death and shoots anyone who strikes or refuses to work. He is a ruler who seeks pleasure in the suffering of people he classifies as beneath him, and on top of that, he openly incites other businessmen to the idea of killing striker workers, saying it will result in order. His unfair rule, cruelty, and monarch attitude makes him one of the worst antagonists in the Red Dead universe, but there's still one more group of people I find worse. Remember how earlier I said that we would come back to the idea of cannibalism? I believe it's one of the worst things a person can do, and alone none of these previous antagonists have done. Well, until now. That's right, the worst antagonist in all of Red Dead Redemption 2, in my opinion, is the Murphy Broods and the Skinner brothers. I do want to say before this section starts that a lot of this is heavily speculation and context clues and not based on anything seen, but I believe that the clues around them point to them being cannibals. I put these two groups together since they basically do the same thing, except one's in the epilogue and one's in the main game. But they are both groups of people that don't act like people, but more like animals. These people are known to capture and torture their victims with overly cruel punishment to inflict as much pain as they can before they kill them. And on top of that, they will straight up eat the corpses once they're done. I don't need to explain how awful that is. It's barbaric. Wait, I'm being way too cruel to barbarians with that statement, so to any barbarians watching, I'm so sorry. The people below them at least didn't do that, and that is the main reason why I classify them as the most evil antagonists in Red Dead Redemption 2. Thank you for making it this far in the video. Now I know a lot of the points I made may be contentious and you may not agree with that, and that's okay. And I would love to hear your opinions in the comments section below. And please, if you want to support my content and want more Red Dead stuff, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It helps me a lot and it helps me work towards my goal of one day doing this full time. But that's all I have for you guys today, so I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.